The Rufus Project would like to advise the following podcast contains spoilers for Rhinestone from 1984. If you do not wish to have this movie spoilt, please watch it before listening to the following podcast. Is it a glittery musical gem or just a cheap, tacky lump? We watched Rhinestone from 1984 to see if we could redeem it. Were we successful? Find out after the theme.
Is it too good to be bad, so bad it's good? What's this movie? Do you think we should? It's got bad dialogue, dodgy creatures, but we want to know what the redeeming features. Boy? Oh boy.
Hello and welcome to the Rufus Project, this time looking at Rhinestone from 1984. I am one of your hosts, Trevor Holland, and I am joined by my good friend and co-host,
Kristian Fletcher. Thank you so much, Trevor. It's a pleasure to be back, and I never thought I'd be hearing you introduce the movie Rhinestone, or even saying that on the podcast, so it's a bit of a different start this time around.
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly, to be perfectly honest, this never would have crossed my mind. Even though I think in some ways it's an ideal candidate for the podcast. So I think this is what's good, that we have the two of us, different tastes, different knowledge. We can have stuff like Rhinestone.
Well, yeah, and I do read a lot of books about box office bombs and so-called bad movies. And yeah, this one has come up quite a lot, so I thought it was very fitting to include it at some stage.
Absolutely. So if anyone out there hasn't seen Rhinestone, I've got a little synopsis here. A country music star must turn an obnoxious New York cabbie into a singer in order to win a bet.
Oh, doesn't it sound like Pygmalion or My Fair Lady all over again? A plot that's probably been done to death in cinema history.
Mm-hmm. But normally it's the other way around. It's the guy teaching the girl. In this case, it's Dolly Parton teaching Sylvester Stallone how to be a country music singer.
Oh, I think that shows already the strength of Dolly Parton as an actress and a performer. I think she's very ballsy and can stand on her own. And I think, look, I'm not knowing too much trivia about this film, but I think, this was about 2 years or 4 years after 9 to 5 when she'd, made her first movie. So, it was good that she was playing these quite strong characters. No one was going to knock Dolly around.
Very, very true. And certainly, we'll get to that. Yeah. But first up, before we get to, I suppose, what happens to Dolly in this movie, that sounds odd, we need to cover a few things. Now, I had a look at the awards for this movie, and I don't think there's going to be any surprise as to the type of awards that it was nominated for and won. It was nominated for Worst Picture, Worst Supporting Actor, Worst Director, Worst Screenplay, Worst Original Song for Sweet Lovin' Friends, and Worst Musical Score at the Razzies. It was nominated for Worst Picture at the Stinker Awards, but it did win the Worst Actor for Sylvester Stallone and the Worst Original Song for Drinkenstein at the Razzies. And it ended up being nominated for Worst Musical of our first 25 years at the Razzie Awards in 2005.
Ooh, so even though they're not necessarily good awards, it still swept the award pool in some respect, didn't it? Wow.
It represented.
So yeah, I think definitely another reason why it's crazy that we haven't done this movie up till now. So it sounds like perfect fodder. But I think going in, just looking at the cast list of Sylvester Stallone next to Dolly Parton, I think it's bizarre from the outset.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I think there's a few other, I don't think they're well-known names now, but you got the likes like Ron Liebman. I think he was quite well-known. I know certainly he looked very, very familiar. And there were a number of familiar faces who I don't think we've seen for quite some time, tucked away in this movie.
Hey, maybe they were doing that on purpose, tucking themselves away. They knew what the outcome of the film was going to be, perhaps.
Who knows? So, well, we'll move on to our turkey trivia. So, first up, we'll talk a little turkey. Or should I say, talk a little turkey about this one.
I was waiting for a gobble gobble, but I was impressed, Trevor.
There you go. I can do a country twang if I have to. I tend not to, but I can. So, this is rated 3.7 out of 10 on IMDb. It had a budget of $28 million, and it took a whopping $21.4 million at the box office.
Oh, not too bad, considering its reputation, but I still would love to know where that $28 million went, probably with the two leads. Because a lot of times I measure films by, what kind of things you're seeing in them that are sort of warranting that amount. But, I think in this case it was the talent, or lack of. I don't know.
Maybe it was the animal trainer.
Oh, yeah. Yes, of course.
Yes, okay, we'll get to that.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I'm like, must not say too much yet.
So, talking a bit of trivia. Now, Sylvester Stallone turned down the male leads in Romancing the Stone and Beverly Hills Cop in order to make this film.
Interesting, because, considering Beverly Hills Cop ended up being, I think, 3 films in total, that could have been a good career move for him. But, I don't know, I think fresh off, I don't know what sort of rocky number he'd just finished doing, but maybe it was looking for a total change of scene.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I mean, he had sung previously once to this movie, and that was for the song Paradise Alley in 1978, where he sung the title song. I've got no idea what that's like. If I do find it and it's suitably appalling, I may put it at the end of the podcast as one of those little things that we never talk about, the little stingers I like to put in there. But so maybe he wanted to. Maybe he did enjoy that one song and wanted to get back to it. Who knows?
Well, I was really surprised to see his name in the credits as co-writing the screenplay. So he must have had a lot more interest in the project than just coming on board as lead actor, I'd assume. So I don't. Yeah. But then one sort of gets the feel it was sort of very much created as a Dolly Parton vehicle, and perhaps he was the afterthought. I don't know.
Well, funny you mentioned the screenwriting there. Yes, because the original screenwriter, Phil Alden Robinson, was so upset by Sylvester Stallone's extensive changes to the original screenplay that he briefly considered having his name removed. He was convinced that having his name on a film of this caliber would look good on his resume. Oh boy!
I was wishing that didn't happen now, but yeah. So he's got his name on there. Oh, you wonder how many of his ideas actually came through, but probably the most of them.
I have no idea, but considering that Sylvester Stallone did make so many changes, it makes you wonder why later in an interview, Sylvester Stallone once said that if there are any films he wished he hadn't done, this film was one of them. You pretty much wrote it, dude. So I don't think you get to say that.
Oh, gosh. Even more reason why we should be watching this. To see if it is the train wreck everyone says. But
absolutely.
But not knowing much about the Glenn Campbell song Rhinestone Cowboy, I was surprised to actually see, based on the song Rhinestone Cowboy. Like, I can't remember the lyrics, but I'm assuming it follows the same kind of plot thing. Not more like someone is to become a cowboy, not necessarily Dolly Parton making you one.
Yeah, I mean, there is a reference that, yes, based on Rhinestone Cowboy, but to be honest, I wasn't really prepared to do the research on that side of it. Woo!
Hence my reason for asking you, because I did the same.
Fair enough. Now, I do think Sylvester Stallone should own this movie, though. It was quite, it got him quite an honour, since this is a film that first earned him one of his many Razzie Award nominations.
I didn't realise he would have had so many, but more I think about it, yeah, he would. So this started them all off.
Yeah, I think you should definitely own your first Razzie. If by any chance I got a chance to be in a movie and I got a Razzie, I would own that.
Hey, especially when he half wrote the screenplay, he's kind of, he's pretty responsible. He should be turning up to claim it. But I was surprised. Drinkenstein was the song. I can understand why that won the Razzie as well for worst song. But I'm assuming Dolly Parton wrote that as well, because it seemed to say that she pretty much wrote all music and lyrics, I believe.
Yeah, she certainly did write all the music and lyrics. There was actually a couple of songs that were basically songs that she had released in previous movies where she just changed the lyrics.
It's a lot easier that way.
Yeah, but, she still scored a couple of hits from this movie, though, so she didn't do too badly.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yes, so that's. I don't have any other trivia.
No, I'm all out. So I guess it's time to set our baseline. So here at the Rufus Project, we do have an aim of trying to redeem movies with less than stellar reputations or box office bombs. But we do need to set our baseline to see what we are working from. So I've dug up a review. The title of the review may be enough, but I will read it. The title is Just Dreadful. I admit that I have never been a Sylvester Stallone fan. No, not even the first Rocky. No one ever accused Stallone of being able to act, but at least with most of his films, you know what you're in for when you buy your ticket. After this ludicrous film, no one will ever accuse him of being able to sing either. A mind-numbingly horrible film, one sits and watches mesmerised by its sheer awfulness. Surprisingly, however, Stallone does not come off the worst thing in the film. That honour goes to Ron Liebman. A comedy needs a clever script and a director and actors with a sense of comic timing. This mess has none of these. At least with Stallone's so-called action films, there is noise and things blowing up to divert you from the mediocrity. Rhinestone just has itself. 1 star.
Oh gosh, okay, that's it can only go up or sideways from here. But just want you to clarify that Rob Lehman. Is he the guy that played? Is it Freddy?
Freddie Hugo with the hilarious initials of FU.
Yes, I know that they managed to bring up. I think even used visually and even say later in the movie. So it wasn't just me that picked that up.
Yeah. Well, considering he had his initials on the door of his apartment, that really they were not being subtle with the fact that they gave him that name for those initials.
At least I now know who you mean. But yes, his comic timing was not impeccable.
Mm-hmm. But, an hour and 51 minutes of people with not quite good comic timing. I must admit that when this was first starting, I was a bit curious as to if it would feel like an hour and 51-minute movie. Or otherwise. But still under 2 hours, Kristian,
It's getting there. That. I've still got to get you back through, I think it was the Superman Dawn of Justice, the 3-hour one, so, I've still got a few points on my side, but I must admit I kind of went in with trepidation, like it's nice seeing the Fox logo. As soon as we went straight into the shots of of New York City into pretty much, I thought, okay, cool, obviously you got a Dolly Parton tune, but she pretty much started yodeling from the start, and I literally thought, oh no, what have I got myself in for? What have I got Trevor in for?
Yeah, it starts with a shot of the Statue of Liberty, and with that yodeling, I just thought there was absolutely no doubt that this is 100% good old homeboy American, and very much about country music. And both kinds, country and western.
There was a few times that the Blues Brothers came up in my mind, actually. We'll get to that. But and one thing it's really, I don't know, it's a clever thing about Dolly is she definitely gives the plot away in the lyrics. Well, that's what I was thinking going in. She's saying about, being a country girl in New York City, which is what she is, but it made me think, okay, maybe the plot of this film is going to be, her being a fish out of water in a big city, but obviously we find out it's the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we eventually do, after those super sparkly titles.
In 1984, it was probably a bit too much. Especially, I think I even heard them make reference a couple of times to disco, and I'm like, ooh, not in 1984.
Yeah. But, I mean, because I knew it was based on the song Rhinestone Cowboy, but I'm thinking, okay, so why is this Rhinestone? Oh, it's the name of the bar. That's handy.
and very appropriate when you can have as many flashy neon lights as you can have on the outside. But as we find out later when we go back to her hometown, where they kind of do it right, it kind of does remind me of when another sort of culture takes on board another culture and says, oh, this is what it would be like. I don't know. They had a very interesting version of a country and western bar in New York City.
Oh, they did, especially when we do see the owner, good old Freddie Hugo, roll up in his limousine, and he comes out, and you're thinking, what is he wearing? It's like this white suit with this overcoat with just like giant shoulder pads. I'm thinking, okay, I know this is the 80s, but those shoulder pads are even enormous for the 80s. Okay, people that remember that, let that sink in. Okay, these were remarkably large, even for the time when this movie was made.
Oh, it's like they had to go everything to excess, and it's like someone didn't send them a memo that it wasn't 1978 anymore. it's quite strange, and it's funny because you've got Dolly as being such an authentic country girl from Tennessee. You'd think she would kind of revolt about having to perform at a place like this that was almost tacky.
Well, we do find out why she's performing there a bit later on, but we have to put up with an awful lot of that owner doing stuff, shall we say, that would certainly earn him reference in a Me Too hashtag today from pretty much the entire female staff and Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
It was sleazy in the extreme. Just going, it's not funny anymore. It may have been once upon a time, but that is not what I want to see. And he's just so crazy when he does it too. I know he's meant to.
Oh, I know.
He just does it too well. Is that a valid criticism?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think it does sort of show why. Yeah, I think he would have been trying to be the comic relief with the character, but it just falls flat and just comes off creepy, you know. But as you said, you know, in 1984, it could have been seen as quite funny. Not funny at all. But I just sort of felt that he was almost in a totally different movie. I don't know. He thought he was in some sort of disco piece. But and the fact that he'd kept following Dolly, and it was always references to, you know, eventually having sex with her and stuff. And it was even kind of stuff that I even felt like, hey, Dolly, you shouldn't have even put up with this as a rebuttal. You know, as an actress having to perform these lines. I don't know. But she's always good with her one-liners, but even then she started to she ran out of one-liners for Freddie because she had to say it so many times to him.
Pretty much. It's only so many times where you can just basically say variations of, "You're a no good piece of trash," and
anything else that she said.
There's just basically nowhere you can go after you've said that in about 5 different ways. But one thing I did notice, like, at the start, because it pretty much starts with Dolly doing a show in this bar and the crowd going wild, and she mentions about a talent show coming up. And I thought, okay, that's a plot line. They're going to get Sylvester Stallone in for this talent show. But aside from bringing out one guy that the owner brought on specifically to be the next big country thing, who of course falls flat in his face and everyone finds him hilarious. Like, there's no actual talent show that ever shows up in this bar, and for it to be just flagged like that, I just went, hang on, there's no talent show? Yeah. Is there any point mentioning this talent show? Why is there a talent show?
And especially, too, when you're used to an actual show where you've got a whole heap of people coming up and performing, whereas it just seems like they've just picked a different person every night that they've found and to fill the place out. And they all seem to be pretty darn bad. But yeah, it was then that I started to realise, okay, it's all about possibly what they're going to do with Sylvester Stallone and make him into something. And yeah, that the whole talent quest became an afterthought.
Yeah, maybe that was part of the original plot, because that would have made some sort of sense. But yeah, but no, we go, I suppose, from that, and do we find out? And I think we find out later that that Felix, was it Felix? Yeah, Felix Hugo.
Freddie
holds.
Yep, you're right.
Freddie Hugo. Yeah, holds Dolly Parton's contract for like 3 years or something. Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, and I'm pretty sure that because that's right, because the record producer comes down to see his big new talent and starts talking to Dolly, and he goes, "Nope, I've got her contract, you can't take her," and it's like, okay, fair enough, there's that plot line established.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole fact that it pretty much comes down to the fact that if if she wins the bet by changing somebody in 2 weeks into a Rhinestone cowboy, she'll we'll have a contract torn up. And his pretty much end of the deal is he gets to sleep with her, and already you're just going, okay.
Oh, well, gets to sleep with her and gets to extend her contract for another 5 years.
And what does Sylvester get? Oh, a taxi cab, which we find out later he's kind of lost all complete interest in. But because we first meet, because it kind of goes, the scene's kind of broken up with, we've got shots of we meet Sylvester Stallone as a very bad taxi driver, and we talk about, I suppose, the misogyny or the sleaziness of Freddie. They had to go straight in with the racism with having the Japanese family in the back of the cab, and he's talking about sushi and pretty much saying, why would you eat raw fish? And I was just like, oh, of course. But apparently 1984 was a very racist year for film, so I wasn't surprised.
Yeah, again, it's like, that doesn't work anymore. So like, he's going across, running stoplights, screeching around corners and yelling at everybody else that they're the bad drivers while this Japanese family is being thrown around in the backseat of the cab and apparently enjoying it. I'm not too sure.
Well, he managed to make them change from going to a sushi bar to the Rhinestone establishment, so he did something
to a cowboy bar.
A cowboy bar. Sorry, I must get it right. That was the term used. But
I know one of those. Yeah.
But we mentioned the awful talent that gets coming up, but the terrible tractor death scene when we sing the lyrics for that song. We've got the guy come on and pretty much just sing about how his wife got run over by a tractor or something like that.
Yeah, she was in her wedding gown, but she had to go plough the field and she got caught in the tractor. And they're all just, the crowd's just laughing, and he's just going, it really happened to me, guys.
Again, I must be thinking, gosh, Dolly probably wrote that too.
I have no idea.
Well, that's when it started to... When we sort of found out, before they kiboshed the amateur talent quest idea that we were talking about, I was thinking, oh no, it's going to be production number after production number of them on the stage doing country songs. Because, I'm not saying I'm very indifferent about I don't really know my thoughts on country music overall. But I was thinking, oh look, I didn't want it to be this. So I was glad it sort of changed a bit. But again, I thought it was going to be more about the talent show than just a random bet. And literally going out to the streets and asking some homeless guy if they'll sing, and I'm like, oh, wouldn't you go and, I'm just thinking, possibly go and maybe audition a whole heap of people first? It just felt like a really weird way of them starting their bet.
Oh, Dolly did say that she could take anyone and turn them into a better singer than what the boss was bringing up to the stage. And
they took that literally, yeah.
And, I mean... So Sly's reckless taxi driving, he basically admits that he crashes the cab because he was checking out Dolly's attributes, shall we say? But
this is where it gets us to the part where I'm just thinking, what an odd teaming, and I think this is probably the first time we see them in the same shot, and I must admit it was quite surreal seeing them together alongside, especially when they immediately pretty much convince him to be turned into the cowboy, and they take him to that bar and he starts flirting with her. I don't know what their age difference was at the time, but I could feel one.
Yeah, I really don't want to think too much about that, considering where things end up going.
Yes.
But she basically ends up buying Sylvester Stallone, basically, because the boss said that if she wins the bet, then he's going to cover all the expenses, and because he got sacked for crashing his taxi, Dolly says that he'll be able to get the repairs paid for if he does this, and they end up seeing the boss, who again, in another scene that I think kind of has strange relevance today. They go visit the boss at his home, which is in Trump Tower.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was like, yeah.
Oh, I am noticing those shots come up a lot when I'm watching 80s and 90s films now. So, yeah, it's definitely got a different connotation.
Yeah. And that's when we find out that Sylvester decides that instead of just having his taxi fixed, he wants to have his own cab company. if he wins, which is kind of like a bit of an escalation that just comes from nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. But look, one thing I did appreciate about it, in movies like this, it's usually that they find out that there's a wager going on at the end, and the other person, slaps the other person because they were falling for them. But at least the cards are on the table pretty much from the outset. Oh, hang on, except for the the bit about having sex with her, which we find out later with Freddie. That's part of the bet. But he seems pretty cool with being bought, essentially. Like, nothing's hidden too much.
Very, very true, and they certainly don't hide the double entendres as he walks out and invites Dolly to come back to his place to, and I'm quoting here, check out his huge organ.
But he doesn't just do the gag once. He keeps it going, and I think they're next to a hot dog van, or how appropriate. But they're next to and the vendor, and then guy behind even turns and smiles and
gives him a thumbs up.
Yeah. Oh god. And then I can't remember the exact line Dolly says, but something about music should be the only thing coming. I hope music's the only thing coming out of that organ, and I'm like, that just took it too far.
Yeah. It's like we got it. We got it the first time. And it's one of those situations where, why is it still going?
Exactly.
Because there is really a basic plot line that they're trying to fill out. That's basically why it's still going. And
I think, and also the lack of chemistry, I think, between them. But I don't know if it's around this part, but it doesn't take long before the hillbilly jokes and put downs, and I think he even, like, this is like, Nick, I think his character is calling Jake, which I was confused about. I think I even heard later that her name was Jacob. I don't know.
Yeah.
Was I confused? I wasn't mishearing that.
No, Dolly's character's name was Jake.
Okay, that confused me. But hey, another Blues Brothers reference there. Wink, wink. And it doesn't take him long to call her a bimbo, which I thought was not that I was expecting it to happen at all. But they don't sort of hold back on things like that. So
no, it was a hillbilly bimbo.
Oh yeah, of course. And they fly thick and fast. But maybe they were trying to distract us from the fact that Sylvester Stallone lives above a funeral home, because we find out that his dad's a whatever you call them,
a funeral director.
Yes, that's it.
But of course, when Sly I shouldn't use the character's name. When Nick demonstrates his proficiency on the organ, like, he starts playing it fairly normally, and he's not, like, even this basic organ playing is not convincing when they show his fingers on the keys. Before he just obviously does start playing it genuinely, because it just is random notes with him singing Tutti Frutti over the top, and wouldn't you know it, a funeral's going on at the same time. Oh god. But
it's like, even if you did have a room above a funeral place, like we see that window that looks down into the actual, the service, wouldn't you have a window on it or something? And I think his dad comes up and says, don't you know you're only allowed to do it after? I can't remember if he said you can only play after hours or in business. I thought he said business hours, to be honest.
Yeah,
so
I think after business hours.
Yeah, after business hours, that's it. Yeah. But and I must admit, it was quite surreal actually, just seeing that shot of Sylvester Stallone playing an organ, singing Tutti Frutti in this movie. I'm just already going, God, you've had a career change. It was just not what I was expecting. But as we sort of find, like, I did notice when we were in his in his apartment, that we were seeing a few Elvis posters and memorabilia around. So yeah, when he came out with Tutti Frutti, I thought, that this is going to be a running thing, that he's a bit of an Elvis fan.
Yeah, well, considering Tutti Frutti wasn't even Elvis.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
But he did it in his style. But
he sure did.
And then we sort of move into the dinner scene where we, where Dolly pretty much approaches his parents and says that she's going to take Nick to Tennessee with her. Yeah, during the family movie where we get to see his dad being a sleaze with Dolly. Is every guy in this movie sleazy? That's what I was wondering at this point. Is like, I don't think I saw a single guy who wasn't sleazy or obnoxious in some way to this point. Yeah. And you guys going, and it's
really?
Like, fair enough, a vehicle for Dolly Parton, but you don't have to worship her to that sleazy stage. But yeah, it was quite strange. But I just love hearing the mum go, I don't want you to go and be a cowboy.
He goes, you can't learn anymore. It's like, could this Italian family be any more stereotypical?
Oh, I know. It reminded me a lot of those scenes out of Saturday Night Fever when John Travolta's sitting around the dinner table with his Italian family in very similar sort of situations. And always a lot of food. She's like, what did Dolly say? Oh, do you guys eat like this every night? But then she gets up and leaves and says, okay, you coming with me, Nick? And he's probably saying, oh, I just sat down to eat. We've got to leave.
Yeah. I don't think he actually eats anything. And there's all this food being piled up on the table. And we get to go to the country town that could not be any more stereotypical.
Oh, I know. But I was actually thinking that, was this sort of... Dolly would have felt very much at home with having it more about... It was almost like it was supposed to showcase her lifestyle or where she came from and her background in Tennessee. But as you said, riddled with so many stereotypes. It's even she probably would have cringed at some of those.
Yeah. So they're driving... It looks like one of the towns in the... in like the old westerns. There's sheep being driven down the main street. There's a couple of guys chewing tobacco and whittling wood. And Dolly appears to know everyone's name.
But what I love is, considering she's taken him under his wing, and this is Sylvester Stallone, and brought him to Tennessee, you think she would have said to him, maybe you don't need to wear the the suede boots and the big sunglasses and all this. I don't know. He definitely looks like fish out of water straight away, and I think it was like they were trying to remind us the whole way through that this guy is the fish out of water. And the more I think about it, when I originally was going into this movie thinking it was going to be the other way around, I actually think it worked better having it this way rather than Dolly trying to find her way around New York City as a country girl. So, I don't know, the ball was kind of, her court and she could shine, I don't know, with her sort of country mentality and her acting, so...
Yeah, her country know-how.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeehaw.
And I think they established that Sylvester Stallone had his own style, shall we say, because he just wears these ridiculous shirts. I think at one point he's wearing like a t-shirt with a skeleton on it, in a country bar, mind you, with everyone else dressed up like cowboys. Pretty much, it's like, yeah, rightio. Let's just really just wedge in this whole this guy's different as hard as we can.
Oh, definitely. And like especially when you got the guys that you said with the tobacco, spitting the tobacco, and they're like really slow going. He seems a bit slow-witted, dim-witted, or something like that.
Yeah, I think even the father says that, like when because they get him to the homestead, and it's basically get him right up in the porch in front of everyone with a guitar to just go, okay, now go sing. It's like you haven't given him any lessons yet. You've seen what he does with the organ at the funeral home. He's been in this town for, what, 45 minutes, an hour, and you're just going, okay, now sing a country song.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that either. I almost thought, oh, maybe we've had a lapse in time, and he, this is a few weeks later. Oh no, it's them arriving at the house after having just arrived. Yeah, I thought it was quite strange, and it's like maybe their mentality was, this is supposed to be kind of a sounding board to have this audience there. What was it, the Wild Possum Band or something?
Yeah,
something really, really stereotypical. But I thought it was quite strange. But it was a funny gag, maybe the first couple, but having all the animals running away every time he'd sing. Yes. And then I think the dog comes back because he's thinking, he's getting a bit better now, and then runs off again. But I think probably I liked the bit when the dog covered its ears and rolled on its back. But that again was one of those gags that, okay, we've seen every farm animal react. Okay, we get the idea.
Yeah, so we've seen them all react when he sings his first song, which I don't even remember what it is, and then we get to see it again when he decides, when they ask him to do something a bit more country, so he sings Old MacDonald.
But what I find
he doesn't hold back, though. That's one thing you got to say about Sylvester Stallone in this movie. He really goes for it.
Oh, definitely. He's trying. And there was a few times when I thought, I wonder if his voice was dubbed. And I'm like, no, they would have actually got someone that could sing a lot better, I think. But he definitely was lapping it up. And I think that works a lot in those scenes where he is the fish out of water, because, he just seemed so out of place. But what I was quite surprised about, I know they wanted him to embrace the whole cowboy lifestyle and become a cowboy and essentially perform this thing. I was thinking, wouldn't you spend your entire time teaching him how to sing rather than wood chopping? I know we wanted to be shown all these different aspects of Dolly's Jake's life, but I just thought it was a bit strange how it had to all come down to things like that.
Yeah, well, if they don't, well, I mean, because I want to make him more country so you can sing country, but if they weren't doing that, we wouldn't have had the comical country montage where, he's chopping wood, he steps in horse poo.
Oh, it was hilarious.
They have him riding a calf and just go, oh, this is so funny.
Well, this is I'd probably thought this earlier, but this is probably the part where I started to go, oh, there's still probably an hour to go. Okay, unless she teaches him for a lot longer. I was very surprised about where this is going, and I think the fact that I may be jumping ahead, but the fact that he has that fight with Jake and ends up leaving that one night and going to what I've got written here, Bob's Country Bunker, because you know exactly what I mean. I think it was called Cut and Slice. That was the name of the band, like that. And that was the bar he dared to wear a skeleton shirt. And I think a few nights later wore a pink shirt. And I'm like, oh, you might not. That might not go over well here. but
of course, when he does go to the bar, who's the first person he gets friendly with? The guy mentioned in ominous tones earlier in the movie, the ex-boyfriend of Jake.
His name I've got Barnett Kell or something like that. Yeah, Barnett. But I think I do remember them mentioning earlier. But had they mentioned him in front of Sylvester? I think they hadn't they? So the name was.
I think it was more of a side mention. But yeah, of course, when the singer of this Cut and Slice, whatever his country band, comes down, and oh god, he was annoying.
Oh, I know.
I think why is anyone being friendly with this guy? I would just go, hey, hi, bye.
It's one of those people that, would slide up next to you in a chair and, when you'd move a little bit, he'd keep sliding more. And I started to think, oh, maybe this is going to go away where he's like trying to pick him up or something like that. But obviously didn't end up becoming that kind of thing. But yeah, it was, again, I don't know, they were trying to make it a funny situation. But no, he actually did remind me a lot of Charles Napier from Blues Brothers, actually. Because I think, that's right, he does wear the country and western outfits at one stage. So it reminded me a lot of that. But and I think this is sort of where we find out that whatever he pretty much spends the whole night with, doesn't sound the best, but he spends most of the night drunk with Barnett, and I suppose starts teaching him some of the country ways, and Dolly doesn't really like it, the fact that it seems to become then a battle of the sexes with him, sort of anything he teaches him he picks up on, and whereas she spends hours teaching him how to walk down the porch, and he can't do it, even though he can't even do it by the end of the movie anyway.
Very, very true. But I did like the following morning after his night of drinking beer with Barnett, he just basically wakes up in the duck pond. And I'm thinking, that's cute. I like ducks. This is cute.
And you're like, he has no recollection. But I just love how Dolly just walks out and goes, where you been all night? Just kind of, and then continues like it was just such a normal thing.
Yeah, doesn't really bat an eyelid. And it's like, that was actually, I did find that scene kind of cute. It's like, I'm just going to hang here with my friends. Yeah.
Well, actually, talking about cute scenes, I actually appreciated the next scene when just that moment having Dolly just sitting on the bed singing for a little bit. It was just sort of, I don't know if it was just something that we kind of needed at that point in the movie. I don't know, just kind of brought everything down to kind of a nice level for a little bit. I think considering in that scene just before, he'd actually referred to her as baby Hitler. I'm like, you didn't go there, did you?
he did go there. I think what happened there was they realised that they'd had a bit too long without Dolly Parton singing. Because they probably realised that was going to be one of the bigger draw cards for people to want to see this movie.
Not having Sylvester Stallone rolling around in mud drunk, I suppose.
Yeah, and having Barnett be really annoying, but also being able to teach him the country ways better than Dolly, because Dolly's no fun.
Oh, that's right. But I was going to say, I think, I'm not even sure where it goes from here, but I do know that he then goes out on a date with her, and it pretty much becomes that whole bar fight that pretty much she ends up standing up for him. That's what I was saying earlier about how Dolly doesn't hold back in this movie. She's always the strong one. It even gets to a point, I think, where Sylvester Stallone says, are you giving me a sissy complex?
Yeah. Oh, God, when they turn up at the bar and Barnett's there and she's wearing that extremely low-cut dress and just going, wow, that's a lot of cleavage, and you've had her fending off all these sleazy people. Then then there's that outfit, and of course, Sylvester Stallone he's not making eye contact with Dolly at any point during the entire scene. It's just absolutely no way that it's kind of the start of their romance, but it's just like, no, he's just slobbering all over her ample bosoms. There's no chemistry here unless it's testosterone. And considering then she goes and punches down the ex-boyfriend anyway. So even that doesn't really do much, I think, to help take the attention away from her.
Oh, definitely not. And it seems like in a lot of cases she seems to be, well, just I suppose the way it's filmed too, she seems to be the only woman in a lot of the scenes, or a lot of the establishments anyway, or the other ones are barely seen, I don't know, because it's supposed to be all about her. Hence the reason they all want to cut in and dance with her, which is why the fight begins. But at least it sets up that kind of, I thought, this is going to be a bit more of a plot change. You know, they've set up the whole fact that Barnett and I've got his group of thugs, he's got his two friends, I can't remember what their names were, Luke
I don't
and
think
something.
it really matters, yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of set up that whole subplot then of him, you know, because I think the following night they then get Nick to actually perform at the Cut and Slice to do a, you know, I think that's where I don't know if I haven't missed Frankenstein, have I?
No, he does Drinkenstein on the day that he wakes up with the ducks.
Ah, that's right. Yes. So, but
before they go to the bar.
Yep, that's right. So, so he then performed, and I thought, this is going to be an interesting sort of subplot because you've got the Barnett and his two thugs in the audience watching, and I thought, okay, this will end up being a plot development, but it doesn't really become one. It's more just a chance for him to win them over before he goes back to New York. Yeah, but I mean. Yeah, he warms up the crowd by making a few jokes at the expense of Barnett, and then there's a hell of a lot of yee-hawing, and they do a duet. And the way, I mean, seriously, the way that he kept leaning into Jake, I thought that he was going to, like, fall on top of her or something at some point, because he was just, like, giving her no personal space. He was leaning right in, and she was leaning back. I mean, there was no, I did not really feel any chemistry between these two. Oh, definitely not.
And they had these awkward romantic scenes leading up to this, and then there's the actual... where they have singing lessons, and they end up being implied that they end up sleeping together, but it's like, there is no chemistry between these two. Honestly, he just appears to be sleazing on her like everybody else.
Exactly, and I think what was I going to say? Yeah, the fact that he constantly worries about his masculinity and her standing up for... it's like they're in two different movies, but I do appreciate when she comes in those songs when it becomes a duet, because it's almost like she's saving it from it just becoming a Sylvester Stallone number, which, there did seem to be a few of them towards the end of the movie.
Yeah, I mean... I do. I mean, I've got to give him some credit for the fact that he was singing his own stuff, and it was fine. I mean... You said you're undecided about country music. I am decided about country music. There's about 2 songs that I like, and the rest are so the country songs I like didn't really feature in this movie all that much. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I've lost my train of thought now. I went down the road of thinking, okay, I like that country song.
And I've lost my train of thought too.
Yeah, that's okay. But that's right, yeah. So he was singing, was fine, and then until she came in and the energy went up and he started disrespecting her personal space, and they were meant to be having chemistry. There was even like a little quick kiss at some point.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that was apparently awkward, even though Dolly's acting like she was all excited about it.
I even just found that scene when he comes back into her room and she's playing the guitar, a different one from the one I mentioned earlier, and he kisses and they kiss, and I think she does say to him, oh, I want to test out everything else or something like, obviously innuendo, and it's just the typical scene of him, the shot you see in so many movies where he turns out the lamp and then they just lean over and it goes all dark, and I'm like, oh, this is giving images I don't necessarily want, especially knowing the chemistry that they lack.
Yeah, it's just like... They put that plot line in. I'm sure Sylvester Stallone made sure that plot line was in, considering he made extensive changes to the screenplay, as we know. And I think aside from a comical thing where Jake's dad tries to give him a ridiculous-looking country suit.
Oh, that's right. It was ridiculous looking too, but he doesn't want to offend them by not wearing them. I think in the first bit, when we first see it. But then I think he tries to, give it back to him, and he says, "Oh, I've never wanted this anyway. I'm going to send it outside and burn it." Something like that.
So you've been trying to give it away for years, and now you're going to burn it. That's... I don't know what to make of that.
That was again one of those scenes where they had to stop and do that, and I thought, this is filler. That had to have that scene where he takes him to the cupboard to show him the suit and try and give it back. Are we supposed to? I don't know. Was that a distraction? I don't know. Fleshing it out a bit more, I think.
Yeah, and it almost cuts like straight from that, and then they're back in New York, and he's singing a song for his family in this big party situation.
And it doesn't.
It just starts. It's like, okay, that was awfully quick.
Yeah, exactly. And they all herald him as this big star already when he's only just arrived back. I don't know. I just think his parents would have still been a bit more skeptical. But they're all like, considering when he left, they're like, I don't want you to be a cowboy. And then he comes back, they're like, oh, he's doing well. Actually, no. I do remember the part when Dolly does say, when they start having a bit of an argument, and she says, "You're not going to be a singer," and the mum's just, take the cab.
Yeah, that thing was from Dolly Parton is like the night before he's meant to go in front of the stage, and they'd heard that the boss had been making sure he was getting the rowdiest crowd of hard to please hecklers he could find. And Dolly just goes straight up to him and says, "Well, you're not a singer." I thought, what are you doing?
Talk about
Do you want to lose? What are you doing to this poor guy? You've been working on him and bringing him up. You slept with him. And now everything he's learnt and gone through and put up, you're basically just going, none of that matters because you're not a singer.
But it has to wait and tell him in front of the whole his whole family and friends that are there and just killing the entire mood. But then of course it comes out again it comes out the whole part about the bet where she has to sleep with Freddie. And that just escalates it even more. And I'm like, love, you've got no chance of winning now. He's going to be so annoyed with you. And I think it was around this part where she goes, the bet's off. I'm going to go and talk to Freddie or something. I don't know if it was around that part, but I thought, I don't think it's that easy just because you've given up.
Yeah, well, we have the little the sad song from her.
Oh, that's right. That's another.
She's just sitting alone on the stage, just strumming her guitar, singing this little sad song, and one of the waitresses of the bar comes up, and they have a little heart to heart, and that's when she decides to try to get the bet cancelled. And you're thinking, yeah, that's not going to go your way, especially when you go meet FU at his Trump Tower apartment, and he's wearing like a kimono, and he's got a remote control love nest. It's like, yeah, can any more jokes happen? Oh, there's the click of the button to dim the lights, click of the button to start the music, click of the button to open the bedroom and start the revolving doors. Oh, what's that click of the button do? Oh, it locks the front door. Who'd have thought that was going to happen?
Oh, but then you've got on the other side of the coin, you've got Nick waiting at the Rhinestone bar, dressed in his rather Elvis-esque jumpsuit that he's going to be performing in, and that's when I'm thinking, I've got when those aspects of the plot become so obvious. Oh, he's going to work out a way to go and rescue her from this guy, and he's going to come back in time just to do the talent show. And that's pretty much...
at least they did give him the thing of seeing the horse and just going, no way. Well, I think he does it like 3 times though, before he inevitably gets on the horse and rides right into the reception area of Trump Tower. All the guards are saying, "No, you can't do that." And he just goes, I'm going up to see Felix, you go. And they go, oh, okay then. What?
And they're like, but there's a horse in our foyer, or whatever it was.
He's going to see Felix. Oh, okay. So,
but it was. I did appreciate that too, because we were. I think we mainly only see him on the calf. Do we see him get taught horse riding as well? Anyway, you'd assume that had happened as well. So it was good to see him putting some of those things that he'd learnt out in the country to use. So yeah, I did appreciate that kind of plot point. But but I don't think he had much of a plan. It was pretty much just straight upstairs from the horse and ramming into the door a million times. And I think because at the moment that Freddy ends up opening the door and him crash, and that's when Sylvester Stallone crashes through. I think he has that mindset that he's actually managed to do that himself. I don't know. We'll let him think that. Maybe it might be good for his sissy complex that he apparently has.
But yeah, just as the doors open, you hear Dolly say something. You hear the thumping sound, and the boss comes reeling out through the just open doorway. And you cut back to Dolly shaking it, giving a fist to shake as if she's just punched him out. And yeah, I think that's where the sissy complex comment comes in. He goes, I was meant to do that. I was meant to save you.
No, I think it's good they kept it that way. It kept Dolly tough, and it means she wasn't gonna bend or change for this guy. Or maybe she does.
And then she says, let's go. And he goes, that's my line. Why? Because I've got the horse. I mean, that's the thing. Like, when this movie was funny, it was funny. It just was not funny very often.
Oh, I know. You'd appreciate little bits like that too. And I almost half expected her to be riding the horse when they came round, actually. But it's good. Actually, it was supposed to. It shows that he has learned how to do it and is taking control. But yeah. So, but I do like how it's the whole. In movies like this where there is a talent show at the end, there's always that rush to be there just in time. And I think she says to Freddy, yeah, I've got 35 minutes till midnight, and that's when the bet finishes. So they're gonna go and give it a shot.
Yeah, and of course when he first gets up there, he's all nervous and he's not good. He's just playing his guitar and everyone's booing him. And oh no, he's going to fail. Of course he's going to fail. And until he turns around and tells the band, who wasn't playing at all behind him, to pick up the beat. Well, they weren't playing a beat.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So they play anything, they're picking up the beat, and then he gets the crowd on their side with by doing the everybody in the house go yo.
It was so funny because I thought it was almost insulting to the crowd or the whole concept in terms of he's supposed to be winning this crowd over with that style of country western, and he's just gone stuff it. It's not working for me. I'm going to inject my Tutti Frutti type singing into this. So, but hey, it worked. He managed to win them over.
Yeah, and he does his song, and he's doing fine. He's really going for it, and apparently doing fine. In fact, I actually find it kind of scary as he gets more and more enthusiastic.
Yeah, it was something a bit embarrassing about the number for me, but anyway.
Yeah, and then Dolly steps in and joins in because we haven't had Dolly singing for 5 minutes, so she does get to keep on singing, and have their little duet in their concert that can't even be stopped for the closing credits.
Oh, which I was appreciative of. I thought, oh, good, I'm glad it's not going to be, we have to sit through a whole duet song and then another song for the credits. I'm glad it became the end credits. And they were only quite short too, which was good.
Yeah, but he brought it up even further during those credits. Like, bring it down a notch, Sylvester. Just bring it down a notch. You've made your point. Don't go bigger.
Oh, he was, dressed like Gary Glitter. He looked like something stepped straight out of Glam, and there was something quite awkward and embarrassing, about him performing. Yeah, I just wanted him to rein it in a little bit more. But it seemed like we saw earlier on, he sort of wanted to steal the limelight where he could. So he was trying very hard.
Yeah, and it freezes frames on them having a kiss that still had no chemistry whatsoever.
You wonder how many audience was still there by the end of the movie. I don't think this would have had chemistry in 1984 for them.
Yeah. So I believe we've got to the credits, Kristian.
Whoa,
We've got
that
to the
happened
end
quickly.
of Rhinestone.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Was there any other things that you thought were worth mentioning about this movie?
No, we've actually managed to cover most of them. My jaw is still on the ground about a few things, but yeah, it didn't push the boundaries as far as I was thinking. It wasn't as awful as I was thinking, but anyway, I don't want to give off my thoughts. That's most of what I have to say about the main movie.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, you did pick this movie, so please just pause on your thoughts for a moment,
Yes.
because I'm going first. So, look, one thing I noticed with this is Sylvester Stallone, I honestly think he was trying to reach Nick Cage levels of overperformance. He doesn't get there, but I do admire the determination. The jokey dialogue, though, rarely hit the mark. Most of these jokes fell so flat that they actually ended up making the stuff that was funny even funnier, I think, because you just relieve that you actually had something you can laugh at. I am not really a fan of country music. A couple of the songs were okay. I think that if I was more of a country music fan, that probably would be a factor for considering this as a redeemable feature. Not for me, though. There was no chemistry between the leads, but compared to everybody else in the movie, they were the most convincing. Everybody else was either just a one-character sleazeball or just a background person who didn't really get to do much acting at all. So much sleaze. Surprisingly, I wasn't expecting it. This got into that borderline territory that really is kind of tricky. But at the end of the day, there was a bit too much going against it, and by the end of it, Dolly Parton's voice was hurting my head a bit. It's just a bit too high and shrill for a sustained experience when you're watching a movie. So at the end of the day, it came close, but it's not redeemable.
Wow. Oh, I echoed a lot of your thoughts too, and I'm actually a bit up in the air at the moment too, Trevor, so it's interesting to hear your side of it. But now, I felt this film like, I'm a bit of a Dolly Parton fan. I always feel she injects a fun style and her own unique sort of character into this and, didn't hold back in this respect. And the good thing about it was, in considering how sleazy and misogynistic or, most of the pretty much cast were, or the male cast were, it was good to see her sort of keep her own as a strong character. Not be the one that had to sit behind while Sylvester Stallone saved the day. Well, he did save the day, but more as a Gary Glitter type character. In costume, I mean.
Yes.
It was a good chance. I felt very much it was a vehicle for Dolly, especially to show off sort of the snapshot of Tennessee or sort of her background, and it worked. And it worked sort of showing those stereotypes, even though they were quite in your face. Now, the whole time I did believe exactly what you said. There was, a real lack of chemistry. I almost can call it awkward between them. I think that sort of is a key word, I think. But one thing I noticed with the way the plot was, being a real fish out of water type film, if you had picked someone that was, say, better suited to Dolly, I don't know if it would have worked as well. Even, I think it needed to be someone totally opposite to her, where we go, oh, and it's almost believable she's getting this, what is it, no hope a bum or whatever, to become a singer. So in that respect, I can understand why it could have worked. But I do know what you mean. Their on-screen duets got a bit too much. Like, I don't mind a bit of Dolly, as I said, but it got to the point where near the end where it just became, okay, a song with Dolly included at the end and a duet. So have I got on my notes here, said? So yeah, I was very much on the fence like you were, Trevor, but after our chat tonight and, just sort of having a bit of a think there, I'm going to have to say I didn't enjoy it enough to redeem it, so it would have to be an irredeemable movie.
Oh boy, not redeemable, but not far off. I mean, that's really what I'm getting from our experience, which I was not expecting, to tell you the truth, at all. So it was almost a nice surprise that it isn't as irredeemable as it could have been.
Yes, I think that's the way to say it. I think we almost need a new scoring system for those ones that are on the cusp. But yeah, I just thought it wasn't fun enough for me to want to go back for more and want to redeem it, I think. But it's very much on the cusp.
Yeah. Now, I do have another opinion here, quite an interesting one. Now, don't judge me for this. My youngest was with me while I was watching this movie, mainly because he wanted to read his book in the air conditioning. But he did notice that the main actor in this, Sylvester Stallone, was also the guy that played the toy maker, the bad guy in Spy Kids 3. So his comment to me this morning was that he was better as the toy maker in Spy Kids 3, which is, in my opinion, by far the worst of the Spy Kids movies. So there you go. There's a little extra opinion for you about the performance of Sylvester Stallone.
That gives us a bit of a comparison, so interesting.
So if you are aware of the toy maker in that movie, okay, he's worse in this, according to the expert on that. We may not have been able to redeem this movie, but as with all these, it does have its fans, and we do like finishing on a high point. So I've gone back and I found another review, which is titled, Finally Priced Right on DVD. Have been waiting for this movie to be reasonably priced. I love this whole funny movie. I'm a big fan of Dolly Parton and Sylvester Stallone, so of course I loved Rhinestone. The songs are great, the dialogue funny, and the whole plot is a good one. I think the fact that the dogs howl when Sylvester Stallone sings is part of the charm of the whole movie. If Stallone could sing, there wouldn't have been a challenging bet. If you're looking for the best movie in the world, this isn't it, but if you're looking for a good funny movie, Rhinestone is the one. 5 stars. At the right price.
That's what I was thinking. They're really clutching at straws, aren't they, when they're pretty much saying they love this movie because they got it fairly cheap. Anyway, oh well, there's fans for everything.
Absolutely. So that brings Rhinestone to an end. So I guess we need to think about what we're going to watch next time.
Oh, yes, I'm interested.
Now, I just want to say that this might be a bit hard to believe, but I am not following a theme here. Yes, this is another 90s movie, as per my last choice, and it's also back to a location that we know pretty well. I picked this one because there are a lot of comic book movies coming our way, so I think it's a good time that we check out one of the early pioneers of the genre, and it's completely coincidental that most of it was filmed at Movie World in Queensland, Australia. I do remember there being a lot of hype around this movie that did not translate to box office success, and neither did the prospect of seeing Billy Zane in a purple bodysuit. So we are watching The Phantom from 1996.
Oh wow, I've never seen it, and I do remember it sort of having the fanfare about it being made at Movie World on the Gold Coast. So interesting. I'm willing to give it a go.
Awesome. Now, if you want to check it out before our next podcast, it can be rented or purchased through the Microsoft Store or Google Play in Australia. I'm sure there's other places out there. I'll leave that entirely up to you guys. Funny thing, I actually did see this one at the movies.
There you go.
I can't remember too much about it, but I was one of the ones who was caught up in the hype and gave it its contributed to its not so successful box office.
Hey, at least you get to look back at it now with redeeming features eyes. So
certainly do. And speaking of not so much looking back, more looking forward. I understand, Kristian, that there's a few awesome things coming our way from Kristian Fletcher Events.
Ah, definitely. Well, we've got the infamous Rocky Horror Picture Show with Cards for Sorrow floor show returning to Chanel Theatre on the 23rd of March, featuring 2 of your Rufus Project hosts. We'll let you work that out.
Which 2 could that be?
Yes, I'll leave that up. If you feel like, message in the comments if you think you can work it out. And we'll be launching our 80s film program at Metro Arts, which is everything from Footloose to Flashdance, Nightmare on Elm Street, and we're doing a lot of horror things like Rosemary's Baby, and future things down the track that I can let out is we're doing movies like Barbarella, Clerks, Office Space, Tank Girl, all sorts of things. Actually, I thought Tank Girl was going to be the movie you'd recommend when you said a 90s comic book. And yeah, so too many dimensions. So head to christianfletcher.com or Kristian Fletcher Events on Facebook for more information.
Fantastic, absolutely, and from my side, we are still trying to get more stuff out on the Rufus Project YouTube channel. I would certainly recommend checking that out. Of course, you can also follow the Rufus Project on Facebook or Twitter for updates as we go. I'd probably suggest Facebook over Twitter. Now, if you want to get in touch with us, you can very easily. You can leave comments in the podcast description down below if you found this on our homepage, which is rufusproject.com. You can leave comments on Facebook or Twitter, or you can send us an email to podcast@rufusproject.com. We also always love to hear what your thoughts are on the movies that we check out. And of course, if you have any suggestions, we would love to hear them. I've just realized that we were, 4 episodes in, and this is the first time I've given out the contact details this season. Woo, professionalism!
I didn't even notice.
Oh boy. So, on that very professional note, I think it's time that we wrap this up. We did not manage to redeem Rhinestone from 1984, but we will be back next time to see what we can do for The Phantom from 1996. So until then, enjoy watching whatever you enjoy watching, and we will catch you later.
Just take a look around. Darkness rules the earth.
In a dangerous world.
Governments crumble. Chaos reigns.
In a treacherous time.
There is opportunity in chaos.
Evil is a fact.
We shall succeed where they have failed.
And courage.
Stop them. You're the only one who can.
Is a phantom.
Who was that guy?
Somebody I already killed.
Soon they will discover the phantom is real.
Is it too good to be bad? So bad it's good. What's this movie do you think we should? It's got bad dialogue, dodgy creatures, but we want to know what the redeeming features.
Boy? Oh boy.
Kristian and Trevor on the case, watching movies from all over the place. IMDb says it's bad, but we want to know if it's fun to be had.
Boy? Oh boy.
Redeeming features.
Boy? Oh boy.
Budweiser, you created a monster, and they call me Wittgenstein. And they call me Drinkenstein. Yeah, I'm Drinkenstein. I'm Drinkenstein. I'm drinking.